Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Melinda George, and I'm the president of the National Commission on Teaching in America's Future. On behalf of Learning Forward and NCTAF, it is my honor to welcome you, all of our agents of learning who are here for this challenge in Chicago. For those of you joining us by live stream, welcome. You are in for a treat. We have an amazing group of educators who are using their expertise and ideas to help improve education for every student. And for those of you here in Chicago, congratulations and good luck. Before we get underway with this challenge, I wanted to give a little background on how this challenge came to be, as well as the process that will happen today. In early March, Learning Forward and NCTAF released a joint paper about the critical need for teacher agency in teaching and learning. Our organizations didn't want this to be a report that just sat on the shelf. Instead, we wanted it to spur action. We decided to take the lead and created the Agents for Learning competition, which we announced in early April. The competition was designed to engage educator teams in advocating for the best use of federal funding for professional learning under the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. The competition was supported by many education networks and organizations that have advised the process on everything from the creation of the application and scoring rubric to the webinars to the actual evaluation and scoring of the applications to the coaching that has gone on here in Chicago. Applications were due June 10th. Our teachers here remember that day well. We got many terrific applications. We were so impressed with the ways in which teams interpreted the law and thought of visionary ways in which the law could be used to improve professional learning and support for educators. The purpose of the competition is to elevate this great advice as well as to spur continued agency and advocacy among all of its participants. As a result, the sponsors determined that all finalists would be determined as winners. There would be no final ranking. Each set of recommendations has tremendous merit and may be the best recommendation for your particular state or district. During the closing celebration, which will occur after this next period of time, we will invite the judges to help us award some certificates of recognition to the participants. It is important to note that the applications today range from very broad, visionary ideas to very specific district and school-focused plans. There is no right answer. We believe the variety of suggestions will offer policymakers new perspectives and strategies to improve education and to incorporate into their ESSA comprehensive plans and then into their professional development implementation. Following the competition, we are looking forward to our partners' help in continuing to promote and raise awareness around these good ideas. We appreciate we want the presentations to have a much longer life than the day of this competition itself. We invite your suggestions as to additional ways to continue to elevate and amplify this excellent work. Another outcome of this competition that our Agents for Learning have been hearing about is a toolkit that we will share with all of our partners, their affiliates, and others who are interested in potentially replicating this competition and or seeking ways to advance teacher agency to improve professional learning. So what are we going to do today? Since you've been here, each team drew a number to determine the order that the presentations would be given. Each team has been allocated 4 minutes to make their presentation. And we're going to keep that tight. Time will be called at 4 minutes. During the presentation, judges will be asked to pay attention and provide feedback in a number of ways. You'll see some immediate placards that judges will hold up at the end of the presentations to give you some feedback on what they saw and heard. They're also going to be writing some brief comments on a card for each team, and they're going to be shared with the lead judge for each presentation, but then they will also be shared with the team. So you will get all of that written feedback as well. And then one judge has been assigned to each team to provide 4 minutes of feedback. And we're going to keep you all to the same tight schedule of 4 minutes. A live Twitter feed is happening at the same time. We know we have great tweeters in the audience, and we know we have great tweeters on the live stream audience. So please capture tweets and pictures from the event. The hashtag agents, the number 4 learning. Whether you are here in Chicago or watching us online, please join in the conversation. It is now my pleasure to introduce my partner and colleague and friend, Stephanie Hirsch of Learning Forward. Stephanie, thank you for your leadership and partnership in this effort. Good luck, Agents for Learning.
Melinda, thank you. And thank you for the incredible partnership in this effort. I can't believe we're finally here. So we're so excited. Welcome to everybody in the room and welcome to everybody online. We are really grateful today to have 4 amazing judges who we know will provide tremendous feedback to our agents, as well as they will have the opportunity to rate the presentation. Notice I said rate, not rank. So let me introduce you to our judges. Our first judge is Stephanie Banchero. Stephanie is the Program Director for Education Programs, which works to ensure all students, especially those who are low income and minority, are prepared for life success by improving the quality of teachers they encounter in school, enhancing early education policies, and supporting policies that ensure high school students have a seamless transition from high school to college and careers, and that is at the Joyce Foundation. Before coming there, Stephanie was the national education reporter for the Wall Street Journal. While at the Journal, Stephanie wrote extensively about many of the issues the Joyce Foundation addresses, including teacher effectiveness and early education. Before that, she spent 13 years covering K-12 education for the Chicago Tribune. You're hearing about why we invited Stephanie to be a judge today. Her nationally recognized reporting has received first-place awards from the National Education Writers Association and the Missouri School of Journalism. She also received the Harry Chapin Media Award and an honorable mention from the Casey Journalism Center on Children and Family. She was awarded the prestigious one-year Knight Fellowship in Journalism at Stanford University. Please join me in welcoming our first judge, Stephanie Banchero. I told her as a person who worked in media that she had the right to be the caustic judge. Our next judge is Johanna Hayes. You met Johanna yesterday. Johanna's route to teaching began as a student, the first in her family to graduate from college. She was inspired by her teachers who urged her to dream bigger and who believed that she was college material despite a challenging upbringing. A veteran history teacher at John F. Kennedy High School in Waterbury, Connecticut, Johanna also sees herself as an advisor, counselor, confidant, and protector. She endeavors to fill the role for her the teachers had in her life, guiding students to be their best selves and encouraging them to take ownership of their communities. As a teacher, I strive to facilitate learning in a way that engages students by connecting on a personal level and stimulating academic growth, while simultaneously producing contentious and productive members of society, she says. For Johanna, being a teacher is a privilege and an opportunity to transform lives and foster a sense of social responsibility in the next generation. As the 2016 National Teacher of the Year and a spokesperson for the teaching profession, Johanna hopes to motivate more people to become educators and continue to carry out this important work. Let's welcome our second judge, Johanna Hayes. Okay, so as the teacher, we expect her remarks to be empathetic. Our next judge is Chris Minnick. Chris Minnick was appointed Executive Director of the Council of Chief State School Officers in December 2012. As Executive Director, Chris has ushered in a new strategic plan in which CCSSO is committed to making sure all students participating in our public education system, regardless of background, graduated prepared for college, careers, and life. Since 2012, CCSSO has worked with states to raise the bar on standards, assessments, and accountability, transform educator preparation programs, design new approaches to teaching and learning, and implement and sustain promising reforms across the country. Chris first joined CCSSO in 2008. While at CCSSO, he facilitated the state-led Common Core State Standards Initiative and served as Senior Membership Director. Chris has an extensive background in assessment and accountability work, working to improve assessments for educators in both the public and private sectors since 2003. And you all met Chris at lunch. Please help me welcome Chris Minnick. Okay, given your remarks at lunch, Chris, you get to be the clever respondent and eliminate the policy wonk talk. Okay. Now, Rachel Wise is our final judge. Dr. Wise is currently the president of the Nebraska State Board of Education. When Rachel was a high school student in Kearney, Nebraska, she taught swimming lessons at the public pool. At the request of the parents, Rachel taught a special needs student how to swim. According to Rachel, it took more repetition, more confidence building, and different strategies, but we had fun and he learned to swim. The experience stayed with her, and she soon discovered that working with special needs children is no different than working with any other children. Rachel said that teachers celebrate growth and success, and special needs children experience growth and achieve milestones just like any other child. While working on her master's degree in vocational education and special education, she began her teaching career as a family and consumer science teacher. For the next 12 years, Rachel worked as a teacher and special education coordinator and as the assistant director of special education services. In 1996, while pursuing her PhD in Community and Human Resources, Rachel accepted a position in the Omaha Public School District where she served as Director of Secondary Education and Career and Technical Education. Today, she resides on a farm in Oakland, Nebraska with her husband, Gordon. She received her education at Nebraska Public Schools, including a bachelor's degree from the University of Nebraska and her master's and doctorate from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. So join me in welcoming Dr. Rachel Wise. Okay, so I'm also from Nebraska, so I will tell Rachel that I know her feedback will be plain talking. Okay, so that's our panel of judges, and we want to welcome up our first team, the Massachusetts Teachers Policy Fellows.
I'm entering my 6th year teaching in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and through many conversations with other educators, I've come to internalize a message that at this point in my career, I'm expected to plateau in my practice. There is a great deal of research that supports this phenomenon. However, there is also compelling research that says the opposite, that under the right conditions and with the right opportunities, I can continuously grow in my practice and improve student outcomes. My colleagues and I seek to outline what conditions we believe are the key levers to making this possible. We believe teacher leadership is the most powerful method of improving teacher practice and student outcomes, and that the new federal law, that Every Student Succeeds Act, creates this opportunity by way of teacher-led professional development and career ladders. There truly is no other stakeholder who is better positioned than teachers to support the implementation of this law. So it is time to professionalize teaching. At all levels of ESSA implementation, teacher voice must be present.
ESSA needs to be implemented at the local, district, and state level, where there are different key factors and stakeholders who must work in collaboration with teacher leaders to ensure effective implementation. At the local school level, differentiation is key to sustaining teacher development and retention. Principals need to understand that professional development needs to be differentiated based on experience level, grade level, and content area of the teacher. And who better to provide that professional development than teachers themselves? At the district level, specificity and collaboration are keys to ensuring that schools receive the type and level of professional development that best meets their needs. Superintendents must provide a menu of options to schools to allow for teacher voice around their area of growth, because a generic one-size-fits-all professional development does not recognize the intricacies of content-specific context or sociocultural diversity. At the state level, dissemination of best practices and resources is key to ensuring equity for all students. The Department of Education must work alongside teacher leaders to ensure that we are developing a robust teaching force dedicated to student growth.
ESSA calls teacher leaders to action. In thinking about further professionalizing the career of education, we need to make a paradigm shift. Teachers are leaders as well as resources, and we need to think about their growth, their advancement, and their retention. With this frame in mind, schools must consider compensation, and that's not just financial, it's also in terms of time as well as training and development. The structures for this training and development could include instructional learning teams as well as professional learning communities. In my own experience facilitating a professional learning community in a school and a district that was piloting their ESL program, teachers were supported to pursue their dual licensure in content and ESL, thereby developing and advancing their career. Districts and states can provide further incentive through career ladders and career matrices, including hybrid roles. For early career teachers, this also provides a trajectory for their professional growth.
While we have several recommendations, all of which have been outlined in the Teach Plus memo that the judges have all gotten, one example is around measuring the extent to which professional development impacts teacher practice and student outcomes. On this slide, you'll see the demographics of my own classroom. I work as a kindergarten sheltered English immersion teacher in a Boston public school. All of my students are newcomers to my class, which means that they either don't speak any English or they speak very little English. They came to me not knowing how to read any sight words, and within the first 8 months of school, 3/4 of them either met or exceeded statewide reading benchmark levels. And so we were able to do this because our grade level team met once a week to discuss topics that were impacting the work that we were doing at the time. We also all took turns to facilitate in our own areas of expertise, and all of this work really helped to create ownership in the work that we do as teachers.
Right on time. Good job. Thank you. Okay, so the first judge that we'll select to give feedback to this team will be Chris Minnick.
Great job, guys. Great job. So I thought up front, one of the things that hooked me, and I sort of think like policymakers because I'm engaged with them all the time, is that you myth busted right up front about sort of the myth that teachers plateau in their performance. That was a great example, and it got me engaged in the presentation right away. So thank you for that. I would say language matters a lot also. So one of you said principals need to understand, and I think that could be phrased something like principals, or working with principals, we will help them see, or something to that effect, because the last thing a policymaker wants to be told is that they need to understand something, let alone my 4-year-old doesn't want to be told that either, but yes. So I think language matters big time. The ideas in this memo and the ideas you presented are excellent. I think getting now to the point where when you have more than 4 minutes with a policymaker, make sure you are doing this 4 minutes, and then right after that you start talking about what you need them to do, because you got me bought in, right? I'm ready to go do this for you. but I don't know what I need to do next. So make sure you're trying to get to the place of giving them feedback on what that needs to look like. So let's see. What's Rachel talked a little. Why don't you talk about this?
Is that how this is working now?
Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to slide a card over to you.
Okay, all right, then I'll talk about it. That's fine.
I can't read my writing.
Yeah, well, that's
There's the problem. I can do it.
okay.
We may go over the 4 minutes here. I just want to applaud you and recognize that important foundation that you started out with around the teacher voice and teacher growth being really critical foundation to professional development and to professional learning teams as you move forward, as well as tying that into some sort of career ladders and career future for teachers as well. And then probably the one other piece that really jumped out for me was at your end slide when you talked about measuring effectiveness. I think from, again, a policy perspective, spending a little more time and thinking about the detail related to student outcomes is an important element as well, to be able to communicate to policymakers and to parents how the time that's being used for the professional development is really helping student outcomes. Being able to articulate that at a level that policymakers and parents and communities understand, I think would be really valuable.
Yeah, please, Stephanie, we have 1 minute left. So.
Oh, sorry, I'll make it fast. I like at the very end, the last teacher who spoke, that sort of personalizing the narrative to make it not some abstract concept, but these are real kids in a real school. I think that was fantastic.
Yes, just that from the very beginning you started with that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, and you talked about differentiation, a menu of options, and equity. I would encourage you to have a plan for what that looks like, because I've mastered the art of having solutions for my principal's problems, because he would see this as, how are we going to incorporate all of this into a professional development schedule? So just to say we already have it and kind of map that out. And then the other thing that has teacher written all over it is that this is very reflective. At the end you say you're going to measure the effectiveness and continuously adapt and modify. I think oftentimes policymakers have gotten so used to doing things that they know don't work. So in true teacher fashion, you've built in that reflective piece. Nice job.
So before we, I guess Team 2 can get ready. We have your final rating from the judges. So would you like to show your score? 1, 2, 3, display. You can have whichever one you want. You can use whatever one you want. You will notice that we have several ways in which we will be rating you this afternoon. Okay, now that we have the process for judging down, remember, we didn't have a day and a half to rehearse for you all. So that was great. You know what I really appreciated was the statement when you made teachers are not only leaders, teachers are incredible resources. So congratulations on the great work and for being willing to be the first team before us today. Okay, our next team up is Breaking Bad PD presentation. And this is from New Mexico. Breaking Bad PD.
Hi. Thank you. Katzenmeier and Mahler said, within every school there is a sleeping giant of leadership. Our vision of professional learning seeks to release and harness this power utilizing ESSA funds. In my district, too many initiatives are top-down generated. They are typically supported with standalone, single-serve PD experiences with little consideration for site-based needs. We know that educators learn best from one another. Pedagogy, content, and best practices all come alive and are relevant in the context of the classroom in which we teach. Teachers' passion for their students becomes ignited when they are allowed to create and implement lessons that address their students' immediate learning needs. Our system is grounded in authentic inquiry-based practices where teachers take charge of their own professional learning based on need. They participate in continuous cycles of collaboration, observation, and reflection. It is in this context that compliance to initiatives moves to relevant and meaningful application, leading to true impact in the classroom.
Our vision is supported by a successful lesson study pilot project designed and implemented by members of this team in our district. This pilot showed that student learning will skyrocket when we can access teachers' expertise, their vested interest in student achievement, and their intrinsic passion for success for improving their practice. The following essential components are needed to successfully scale this model. We need to ensure that every teacher has the opportunity to engage in high-functioning, inquiry-driven, collaborative teams. We can do this by providing teachers time to design and implement deep learning on topics that matter to them, their own students' learning. We can also do this by building the capacity of teacher leaders to lead those teams with training and support in facilitation skills and the continuous improvement processes. Instructional coaches can then provide support in content or pedagogy to meet the needs that surface for teams or individual teachers as they arise.
As a teacher leader for one of these pilot teams, we used protocol to guide our problem of practice. We began by envisioning, if we waved a magic wand and could give our students any skill, what would that look like? These goals aligned with school and district goals. In this inquiry process, we collaborated to create strategies. We observed teaching in action. We analyzed student results and reflected on successes. Together, we were better teachers. Teams were diverse and varied. My team of 5 kindergarten teachers incorporated technology into an early childhood education classroom. Other teams were cross-grade level, and some were teams of like content areas from different schools. Each team had success for all their students, and teachers were empowered in their own practice.
In order to grow our vision for restructuring teacher learning systems, we recommend that our district use ESSA Title II funding to align with the law's new definition of professional development. To do this, school staff will need more time to work in teams during and outside the school day to plan, observe, debrief, analyze student data, and reflect on their students' learning and needs. In our study, participants named lack of administrative support as a hurdle to effective professional development. To address this, districts could provide administrators with training in utilizing teacher leaders and shared leadership structures. Districts could also benefit from funds for site-based support staff, such as instructional coaches, to ensure successful implementation. Lastly, districts need to support schools by allowing more flexible use of funds to meet specific needs of school sites. Thank you for this opportunity to share our vision.
Breaking Bad PD, New Mexico. Great presentation. So let's start feedback to you from our judge, Rachel Wise.
Well, I'd like to applaud you on a great presentation, as well as the foundation that you provided. We did have an opportunity as judges to read your applications, and so we've got a little bit of a foundation from that as well. And I think the way you titled Breaking Bad is a great creative title for where we need to move forward. I appreciated some strengths that I think your presentation and your project really pulled together is to move away from that top-down perspective that really is the process of the past. And I appreciated in this presentation you talking about waking up the silent sleeping giant. I think was really a great way to talk about how, again, teacher voice becomes very, very important as we move forward with ESSA and the opportunities with ESSA. I also thought it was good that you used what's already in place, in the sense that in Albuquerque you're already developing and underway in this process. So I think that really helped your presentation, having that foundation to build from. I think one of the other pieces that is important that you can continue to build on is understanding that relationship with students. One of the things you articulated was that your professional development is really based on student learning needs, and I think that's such an important foundation that I would highlight that just a little bit more, and highlight that in particularly for your community and state stakeholders, because I think they can identify and really understand when you start the conversation around the importance of professional development is really to better meet and provide for our students and meet the student learning needs that you have. So I will turn to my colleagues and see if there's some comments.
I like that you labeled the core components for us. Like, that was the thing that I will walk away from your 4 minutes with, is these are the three things as a policymaker I would need to adjust if I wanted to try to make this happen. And I like that you used a real example. Rachel talked about that, but those are good things that people hold on to. They're stories that people tell going forward. So if you're a legislator, you need to be able to tell this story of what's happening in the school district that you represent. So that was great.
I think as a teacher, I've loved the teacher teams where you identify problems of practice and then align them to district goals. My superintendent loves to hear that things are aligned to district goals. But one of the things I'm learning in this role as I travel around the country is that many of us have the same challenges, but the solutions look very different depending on where you teach or the communities that you serve. And I think the fact that you started out by saying they're based on student learning needs and aligned to your school and your district, so it really allows us the opportunity to work together and share, but then tailor the needs specific to our students and what will work in our school. So it's a very large concept with very specific solutions.
Yeah, I would just add, I love the specifics of it, and somebody mentioned how you can scale the model, which I thought was great, but I would just get really specific about what that means. I mean, I heard you say it, then I was trying to listen to, like, well, how exactly would you do it? So I'd be really specific about what scale is, because that's super important for the policy level.
One quick parting, and that's your last comment about the, with ESSA, the use of flexible funds, and I think that's what's important, and that's what is important for teachers to be thinking about, how they drive professional development and flexibility with the use of ESSA funds. Thanks.
Breaking Bad, thank you. Let's round of applause. And we'll give our judges a moment to choose their rating for this particular presentation. I will tell you all that if I was in New Mexico and I wanted to teach right now, I'd want to teach at your school. You just described everything that we advocate here at Learning Forward. So the rating is, are you all together with the same one again? Oh, it's okay. Did you capture your rating there? Okay. All right, next up, we have the Michigan Catalyst for Teacher Leadership.
Picture this, a system where teachers can lead from the classroom, a district that has identified teacher leaders, providing supports for their peers, making policy recommendations, a state that houses a network of teacher leaders who provide expertise to educators regionally or statewide. ESSA is giving us the opportunity to utilize Title II funds to create a better way. We are the Michigan Catalyst for Teacher Leadership. Our collaboration was born from our involvement in the Michigan Educator Voice Fellowship. We've seen the improvements that can arise from this model. Heather is just but one example of this working. Heather.
For the past 20 plus years, I have been teaching for special education, and recently my years were spent searching for PD on my own to improve and keep up with the change of education, especially in technology integration. I connected with a network of teachers, and this gave me my voice, gave me my connections, also a platform to actually create a PD website for technology integration. It was these 2 years that I was able to connect that catapulted me into being able to raise my voice and learn about policy and actually become a finalist for the U.S. Department of Ed Classroom Ambassador Fellowship. It renewed my energy to teach. It taught me better how to advocate for my students, and it also inspired other teachers. And so we want to grow this teacher leadership story. How can we do that? Kathy?
Well, because students deserve instruction that addresses their needs, and they need educators who can identify those needs, we're proposing that a student leadership framework will facilitate the advancement of classroom-driven and collaborative professional development. In addition, teacher leaders will cultivate opportunities to raise their voices with stakeholders to influence professional learning in the classroom. Matt will share what this will look like.
So it not only looks like those pretty faces you just saw, but it also looks like this cycle. It starts off with any good cycle of PD or bettering something. You start with inquiry-based instructional rounds, needs assessments, which are already being done in the state of Michigan. And then you have to have, at the center of it, a teacher leader who can actually break down that data. As you see here, the teacher will break that down, analyze it, make a plan, use the network of other teacher leaders to use the other folks that are similar to them to address that plan, put it into place, and then see how successful it is. And like any good cycle, it continues. So why are these teacher leaders built in a way that they're going to be listened to? Number one, they're going to meet at quarterly convenings where they not only learn best practices to apply to their classrooms, their school, and help other schools, but also how to address policy and policymakers. In addition, they're in a hybrid role where they don't leave the classroom, thus giving them legitimacy amongst their peers. So how are we going to do this at the local and state level?
Okay, at the local level, we need to complete those needs assessments. We also need to identify the teacher leaders, house the teacher leaders, and train them. And in Michigan, we already are completing those needs assessments. We just need to actually have a plan of what to do with those. At the state level, we need to be able to consult with the Department of Ed. We need to establish teacher leaders across the state and join forces, create the database, organize a convening, communicate with policymakers, and provide those examples of the hybrid roles, which I know already exist in other states. And in Michigan, we already are consulting with the Department of Ed. Our team actually is on the ESSA action team, and we are helping with the technology plan for the state.
So in closing, giving teachers the opportunity to grow and lead from the classroom can revolutionize professional development. It energizes us, it informs us, and it transforms us. We are the Michigan Catalyst for Teacher Leadership. Feel free to contact us to learn more about our story. Thank you very much.
So we'll have some feedback for you, beginning with Judge Hayes.
I love the way you began with picture this, because I think that in this time where we're trying to attract people to this profession, it seems visionary. You're looking forward. You're not really harking on all the mistakes that we've made or the things that have happened in the past, but looking forward to say, imagine us operating in these roles, which we know we've been operating in forever. And it seems like a novel idea. And it just kind of reminds me that it's just a great time to be a teacher. And the other thing that I love, and one of the things that has been missing, is that this provides the opportunity to provide feedback to policymakers. You know, there's so much conversation about elevating our voice and people hearing the message that we're trying to send. And I'm learning that people are listening. You know, so in your plan, you're saying we're willing to open that dialogue and have a conversation and share what we already know with the people who are positioned to make decisions on behalf of students. So I love that. And then the clearinghouse of resources, I think oftentimes we do things in isolation. You have pockets of success. And to be able to share that out with teachers in your district, in your state, and then nationally, I feel like we've been reinventing the wheel for so long. When the information is right there, we just need a better way to share it.
I actually had some of the same comments. I think the novel and important concept on creating that avenue for feedback was great. And I love that you really thought about this from a perspective of continuous improvement and not some sort of a static process. So I thought those were some real strengths. And I want to thank you for clearly defining the role of the state as well. I think that's an important part of the process. So thank you.
The whys were very compelling to me up front. One of the whys said, because the current system, I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but something about the current system isn't able to give teacher leadership opportunities or something like that. Be ready for somebody to ask you why we don't just fix the current system. Because I actually think this is a way to fix the current system, but the way the presentation came at me was like, well, the current system's broken, so we're going to go around it and do this thing. But I think if we just integrate this into what we're doing as part of the system, that might solve our problem. And also on your diagram, I think when you explained your diagram, I understood it, but maybe if you could have fewer words on it, I might understand it better. I'm sort of a simple person, and so I think once you explained it, I got it. So it's a good diagram. I think maybe fewer words there. So.
I would say ditto on the diagram. I didn't get it, but when you said it, I got it. I would also, echoing back to a comment on another group, is remember to link it to student outcome, like somehow this is affecting students, which you did a little bit, but I'd make that more specific. And secondly, there was mention of technology, a little bit about, I would just sort of blow that out, like blow it out. And then finally, there were some words that I think that if you weren't in this space, you might not know what does a hybrid role mean? So some of like the jargony words, I would just make sure for regular people who might not know what that means.
Thank you very much. Definitely see how you all are catalysts for teacher leadership within your state. So appreciate those ideas. Lots to think about. And our judges' feedback. Little bit different this time. Okay, next up is impact from Maryland.
Good afternoon. We are Prince George's County Public School System Team Impact. What happens to a PD deferred? Does it sit on a shelf like a book in a store, or fester like a failing test score, and then sit in the back of the class disengaged from the bore? Is it long and drawn like a first week's meet, or is it short and sweet like a Friday's 2 o'clock treat? Maybe it drains like a heavy rain, or does it have life that sustains? This poem represents the current status of our professional development in the teaching realm and the need to bridge the gap between the needs of individual teachers and their professional learning.
So Team Impact's vision for professional learning includes the acronym LIFE, Leveraging Impact for Effectiveness under ESSA.
We believe teachers can provide job-embedded learning for our colleagues. We informally help each other every day on the fly as we are so busy planning, grading, meeting deadlines, attending this meeting or that meeting, or attending a professional development session. But job-embedded approaches are intentional, with carefully carved out time and a clear focus on the learning based on the evidence of great teaching from teachers themselves. First, we must grow trust amongst each other. This will cultivate authentic teacher agency. Teachers will lead professional learning and create a multiplier effect. We will grow effective, job-embedded professional learning, impacting success for all students.
Our current state of teacher PD leaves us gasping for the components of job-embedded professional learning that will leverage the impact of teacher agency. If we truly want to ensure that every student succeeds, we must grow and give life to job-embedded professional learning. Learning that is sustained, intensive, ongoing, classroom-focused, and data-driven. Well, that means that we have to set protocols. Protocols will create a process for professional learning that will encourage a safe zone for teacher learning and become the basis and structure for trust. We find that in education, teachers remain silent and fearful of engaging in collaborative work because of the lack of trust. Protocols will help to alleviate that barrier. It is only after trust has been established that we can really begin to collaborate. Collaboration with all stakeholders is needed to develop teacher leaders and cultivate teacher learning that bridges the gap between teacher needs and student achievement.
So how can we breathe life into ESSA through professional learning, you wonder? Well, this must occur with support from schools, districts, and states. School administrators and teacher leaders will become collaborators, peer coaches, and critical friends who will work to foster cooperative learning, to meet teachers' individual classroom needs, and restructure school schedules to allow critical time for analysis of data. District leaders will take on the role of resource managers, professional developers, and data analysts who will build the capacity of school leaders, train teachers to lead, and restructure professional learning time. States will also take on the role of resource managers, data analysts, and professional developers. They will provide compensation for teacher leaders who will engage in this work. So, why should we have a PD deferred when we can breathe life and ensure that educator voices are heard through job-embedded professional learning that will support the teacher efficacy for which we have all been yearning? Through sustained and continuous collaboration, we will increase teacher effectiveness and impact children in classrooms in Prince George's County and throughout this nation.
Thank you. And our judge to begin comments, Stephanie Benchero.
That was unbelievable. that was really good. The opening, the reference to the dream deferred, I thought was spectacular. I mean, I got goosebumps while you were talking. I thought that was a great. I know you guys ran over time, but it was worth it just to hear that. That was fantastic. I think the way you guys use language was just really great. I mean, first the dream deferred reference, the life, using the words like authentic teacher agency, trust, multiplier effect, like I think Chris said, words matter, and that was very powerful. I felt like I would trust you guys to do whatever you guys said, let's do it. A couple little things. I liked at the very end, too, that you did have specific call-outs, because the whole time I was waiting, like, okay, I get all this, but what do we need to do? I love that you have that. It's very specific. I would spend a little more time on that, like specifically what do people need to do to make this happen. But I thought it was spectacular.
I think I like that this is a presentation that'll appeal to all. It's not just for educators, but if I were sitting in the room as a parent or as a community member or as a policymaker, it makes sense. It's simple, it's precise. The visuals force you to remember the presentation. Like, this is something that I'll walk away from remembering. And as much as I think I hate acronyms, I think this is one that forces you to say, okay, wait a minute, what does the F stand for? And you're really replaying it in your mind in a way that makes sense.
I just have a couple questions. I thought it was wonderful, a great presentation. Love the poem at the beginning. The job-embedded approach is so important. So the question I had was on the tree. In each one of those areas, and I know you would do this if you had more than 4 minutes, so part of this is just choices you had to make in the presentation. But in each of those components, what do we need from school districts for teachers to be able to do this? And I know you have those answers, and so make sure you're ready when people ask you those questions. And then I love that you put the levels up there at the end here. I think my biggest question as a person who represents state commissioners is, so it says support and fund job-embedded professional learning. What exactly do you want us to do there? Because I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to the mountaintop and tell folks they need to do this. But what exactly is the right structure so that the trust is built? Because if we just turn this over to districts or school buildings, I think some of the stuff will be, it will mirror whatever challenges you already have in your school. So anyway, I think we can go further, but you only had 4 minutes, so thank you.
Just to add on that a little bit, I think it's a great foundation for states to look at. You really defined, I think, key elements of a model. I loved a new acronym, of course, because we always have to have acronyms. And I think that the way you also, though, used analogies around breathing life and growing life, I thought it was a really creative foundation for the presentation. I thought your tree of life, to define some of those critical elements that need to be in future of professional development, was a great visual also for differentiation. So I thought that was a real strength. And then probably just a little more again about student outcomes and student needs. That was kind of that last little bullet, and I think that would be a piece I would want to add and bring up front a little bit more, maybe even your justification as to why life is important. It's important really to meet those needs of students. So thank you.
Fabulous feedback. Fabulous. And so are we ready for our rating? Check out your rating. Consistent with your feedback, correct? Great job. Next up, Chicago teachers.
Good afternoon, Agents for Learning. We are the Chicago teachers here representing our local chapter of Educators for Excellence. E4E is an organization that provides a platform for teachers to utilize their voice to organize and advocate for policy changes that affect our profession. Today, we are here to share our vision of how to honor teacher voice within PD.
We believe that every student in Chicago Public Schools should have access to a reflective, growth-oriented, and effective educator who understands student learning and can analyze student work and adjust their instructional strategies. We envision that this will occur via the direct result of implementation of choice model professional development clusters. Choice, or chapters of ongoing introspective collaborative educators, is a model designed by educators as a direct result of colleague feedback, research on adult learning, and our shared classroom experiences.
Our choice model is based on theories of adult learning that turn traditional concepts of professional development on their head. Instead of administrator-led, professional development should be teacher-led. Teachers want to become better at what they do, and they respect the process of collaboration. They like to hear from each other. Instead of assuming deficits in the teacher practice, we base our professional development on teacher strengths and give them space to reflect and share their best teaching ideas with each other. We believe that building teacher awareness of what they do is the key to quality professional learning. Because teachers are sharing best practices from their own classroom, teacher agency is embedded in our program.
So this is how we envision the choice program. Chapters of space would be like my own building where like-minded teachers meet during an ongoing weekly time slot that is already in place, such as a common planning period, with a shared commitment to be introspective educators who are flexible and open to constructive feedback. This requires collaborations from all. Number one, from administrators to relinquish control to educators, and for educators like myself to step out of my comfort zone and grow with colleagues. This will result in educators growing into teacher leaders by dissolving isolation, colleagues holding each other accountable to keep their commitment, and then we will be able to celebrate our achievements. This model will only succeed with support from the local and state levels.
To scale the choice model, we have recommendations for the state as well as the district. For the state, we recommend prioritizing Title II funds for districts that have already implemented this model. Additionally, we recommend the state to incentivize districts by creating partnerships with higher ed institutions for licensure credits. For the districts, we recommend districts to set aside a space and time each week for teachers to actually meet and collaborate. Further, we recommend the district to create a digital place, a digital platform, where teachers can collect and share student artifacts and best practices.
Thank you for your audience. We are excited about the new choice model, and we would love to connect with others that are as well.
Okay, first up, we'll hear from, Johanna? Are you ready? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a teacher. Yes, always ready. One of the things, and I guess it's not specific to this presentation, it's a theme that I keep hearing emerging, which I'm so proud of, is that we are all looking to tap into existing human capital. You know, we recognize that there are people with very different talents right in our building, and we need to begin to further utilize those talents. When you outlined the supporting ideas and how all those pieces work, I think in my mind I was trying to envision what that looked like. Like, you know, how would we budget in this reflective time? When will the observations take place? What will the feedback take place? And I know you can't really explain all of that in this model, but I'm thinking of in my building, like nobody has common planning time, like at the same time. So I guess just moving forward, just to have a couple different models in mind of what that looks like and how you do it, because I think it would be very easy when you're talking about a school of 200 or 300, but when you go into schools with 15 to 1,700 where people are sharing space and moving around, just to kind of help administrators understand what that looks like and how it'll work would be helpful moving forward.
Yeah, two quick things. I love the idea of the partnerships with higher ed. I'd like to hear more about that later on. First, I want to say I'm from Chicago, and I love Chicago teachers, so yay, Chicago teachers. Not that I don't love all of you, but the other thing is, you referenced in the beginning this research on adult learning. There's like a big, there's a lot of research going on now about the science of learning. A lot of it is on kids, but there's a lot of emerging research on adult learning, and I think any way you guys can pump that up, like you just said this, you know, the research, even a sentence about what does the research say, I think would be really helpful. Very strong case for what you're talking about.
Just a couple of things. Again, I loved your presentation also on another acronym choice. And I really appreciated those three key elements that you pulled out of the ongoing, introspective, and collaboration. I think those are real critical foundation. The incentivizing funding, I think that's going to be really important and helps to build on that creativity. I also think, though, it would be important to convince me of the benefit to students. So again, think about student outcomes as a part of your presentation and what's that benefit. And I'm glad you added a digital platform because I do think that can expand choice.
I asked you guys if you came up with the acronym before or after you came up with the words, but you guys can tell me that later. I love that you put the expectations out there for all participants. Like that is missing from a lot of the conversations I hear about this, because the expectations for teachers often are clear, but they aren't often clear for everybody else in the system. So thank you for doing that. I loved your recommendation about prioritizing Title II funding, but then it left me with questions like, okay, so do we prioritize Title II funding for districts that are doing this or want to do this? Or if they've already started doing this, do they need that prioritized funding? So I think those are the follow-up questions you're going to get about how do you actually incentivize districts to take this on. So that's where I would go. Great presentation. Thank you.
Chicago teachers. And we'll let them get back to their seats so they can have the benefit of their rating. I know, judges, are you ready? There you go. Oh, they're together. Okay, well, we have them working really hard. They're writing their feedback. They're thinking about what they're going to say. They're thinking about their rating for you. So they're doing a great job, as are all of our presenters. Next up are the game changers from North Carolina, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
All right, a show of hands of how many of you have sat through bad PD. PD that has no relevance to student learning or student growth. That model screams of teacher compliance.
Our vision is to empower teachers to create professional learning that is intentionally tied to student growth. Because we know that as teachers, we find value in professional learning and that growth process when it is linked to student outcomes. So today what we have for you is a framework that was designed to create this continuous growth and this culture of that growth rather than compliance.
Teachers crave high-quality professional development that they know they can implement right away. So we would like to advocate for teachers who want to take charge of their own professional learning and provide them with a network of other educators who embrace the idea of collaboration and are willing to give actionable feedback. We are looking at building teachers' capacity so that we can end up with our improved student results.
So an example of how this model would work. We have Carly, who is a teacher expert and has student data and evidence to show that her instructional practice of, say, blended learning is effective with her students. She self-identifies and self-selects to be a part of this program. Myself, who finds my instructional technology strength in the classroom to work really well with my students, I want more. My student data might show that I could enhance student outcomes with more blended learning techniques. Through state and district facilitation, we would be partnered up based on the instructional practice of blended learning and then would develop an individualized professional development plan. Through this year-long process, we would develop lessons and activities that are vetted and done in our classrooms. We would go into each other's classrooms and be able to observe and give feedback. We would be able to physically and virtually connect and collaborate. So at the end of this process, we would not only have lessons and activities to push out to other teachers, but we would have a documented instructional process to give as PD to our states and districts. This can happen not only on a statewide level, but can happen individual districts across district lines, even at a school level.
And the thing that's great about this for our states and our districts is not only is this plan effective and meaningful for teachers and for our student learning, it's also a very low-cost option. Funds needed for this are very minimal, simply for small teacher stipends, for travel expenses, and for substitute coverage when teachers are out of their own classrooms observing other teachers and working together. In addition to the funding, we have just a few small requests for our states and districts and our schools. One is simply time to be able to put in this important job-embedded and reflective work together. We would also ask that our states and districts help bring together teachers to create, design, and facilitate a network that would allow teachers to partner up in the most powerful and effective ways possible based on their growth and their strengths. And then finally, we would simply ask that our states and districts open it up and make it possible for this kind of work to qualify for continuing education credits, to work toward teacher licensure renewal, and to provide for the hours that are mandated by our states and districts.
As Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina classroom teachers, we have all experienced that traditional sit and get professional development.
This collaborative model is relevant, student outcome-based, job-embedded, professional learning for professional educators. Thank you.
Great job. Great job. Okay, let's invite our Judge Banchero to make her remarks first.
Yeah, that was great. I thought that was really great. I want to channel some other judges up here that I love the fact that you started out from the get-go about intentionally tied to student growth. I thought that was, I mean, you got my attention, like, okay, I get this. We're talking about teachers and students. Love that. I also thought, I wonder if you guys could have played up the cross-state thing a little bit more. The fact that you guys are all from different states. I don't know, there's something to that, I think, that there's lessons learned across states. I loved, again, the end, like the specific ask. I think that's super important, is that you say, this is what we want to do and this is what we need to make it work. The one thing I wonder about is, I wonder if this could be like a pilot program instead of saying, sometimes like people can't imagine, they can imagine it, but they don't know how to get there. And I wonder if it was something smaller, like we want to start it small and grow it. It might be more manageable for a policymaker who's like, oh God, I don't know how to do that. Anyway, I thought it was great.
Again, just the three states working together, I think, is tremendous. I live in a very small state, and sometimes cities can't work together. So just that idea. I think every speaker that spoke ended with student outcomes. And I think what I'm learning is that no matter who you are and what perspective you come from, I think that's one thing that we're all aligned on, is that we want improved student outcomes. And then finally, that your curriculum resources are vetted. I think oftentimes people think that you can just go buy a curriculum program from another state that has worked well, and it's worked well in that state because it's specific to that state. And everything that works in one place doesn't work in another one. So the fact that you are taking these lessons and these curriculum resources and using them yourselves and figuring out how they work best in your district before you include them as part of your toolkit is really important.
I You guys already talked about this, but I love that it was about, like, you caught my attention by talking about kids first and talking about how this actually affects children, not teachers, even though it does. This is all about teachers, so I appreciate that. I love the example. It's concrete. I understood it after you talked through what the teacher piece of this looked like, so that was great. And that the SEA options are good, and there are things that you need. As SEA leaders, we don't look at ourselves as somebody who does teacher stipends and travel and substitute coverage. So I think I would add in there something about setting the vision for your districts, and so something that would show an active, because these are easier things to do. And just a quick thing, if you present in your state, don't put the U.S. Department of Education logo over the SEAs, because they will freak out. So, all right.
Just one little change from that perspective. I'd like to start out by saying I do think you really spoke, I'll put on my hat as a board member. I think you really spoke at a level that policymakers, local school board members, state board members, individuals who aren't educators oftentimes by trade really would understand the presentation that you provided. And by starting that and capturing that transition from compliance to growth, I think that really built a foundation. As my colleagues said, the student outcomes, very important. I also like two other quick things, and that was the focus on individualization of PD for teachers. I think that aligns well and speaks well, and people can follow that important need. And then also for a state level to think about that connect to continuing ed credits. It's certainly something we need to think about. So thank you.
I forgot about something, just that time, because time is so valuable. I'm learning that. Oh my God. Just that we don't think of it when we talk about low-cost options. We say release time. Maybe if you could find some time that's already there, because to me that looks like, oh my gosh, I need more time for something else in addition to all the time that I don't have. So just time is so important.
Thank you. Thank you, game changers. Well, I know the feedback is so much more meaningful than the rating, but we know you want to see it. So let's see the rating from the judges. Hold on. Got it? Great. Okay. Next up, welcome Twin Cities.
Good afternoon. We are excited and honored to be here with you today to share our vision and recommendations for professional learning under ESSA. We've identified 3 key priorities for states and districts to consider when developing comprehensive plans around professional learning. We believe these 3 key ideas will help districts and states create equitable opportunities for student success. Our first key idea: what do we know about how teachers learn? We want to ensure that professional learning represents what we know about principles and best practices of adult learning that you see in front of you. Our recommendation is to use regional centers throughout the state to expand the EdCamp or unconference model. In Minnesota, we already have a successful system of regional centers of excellence that are staffed with education specialists, and we believe that would be an effective mechanism for spreading the EdCamp or unconference model throughout the state. The EdCamp or unconference model reflects best practices, and we believe it fits with ESSA's definition of professional learning because it's grounded in collaboration and it harnesses relationships and technology to improve student learning for the long term. Having personally attended EdCamps in the past, I can say that they definitely help move teachers past compliance towards authentic engagement. Our second key idea: how can we improve collaboration? Research shows that collaboration benefits not just students, but teachers as well. There's demonstrated efficacy in using teacher-to-teacher collaboration, and we see that in many lesson sharing sites that are popular today. From Teachers Pay Teachers to AFT's Share My Lesson, we know that millions of classroom-tested resources are being shared by teachers across the country. We want to see that same thing happen with professional learning resources. Our recommendation is that states incentivize a system and a way to share professional learning resources. The benefit of this is that it reduces redundancy and effort, and it makes sure that federally funded time is spent being creative with the resources that we have. Our third key idea: how do we build teacher agency and capacity so that these systems are sustainable? We want to elevate teacher voice, support diversity, and value teacher expertise. We believe practicing teachers are in the best position to understand the impact of policy. Hybrid leadership positions where teachers spend part of the time in the classroom and part of the time engaged in leadership work allow teachers to remain connected while at the same time contributing to broader educational initiatives. Recruitment and retention of diverse teaching force is essential not just for creating equitable opportunities for our students, but also for fostering innovation and creativity among our staff. Some of the most meaningful learning opportunities that I've experienced is when I've had the opportunity to sit in another classroom and learn from that teacher. Peer-to-peer observations, especially when it's non-evaluative, puts value and trust in teacher expertise and gives us the ability to learn from one another. Our recommendation is to expand Grow Your Own programs to raise teacher leaders and recruit teachers of color. We believe that the most effective and sustainable change comes from within. Professional learning has the power to transform classroom experiences for teachers and for students. Comprehensive plans can further this vision through, number one, differentiated and self-directed learning opportunities, number two, collaboration across districts, and finally, number three, an intentional focus and value on elevating teacher voice and diversity. Thank you very much.
Great job. Judge Hayes, do you have some comments?
I want to start by saying no, thank you, because I'm just so happy that for the first time today we heard that culturally responsive professional development is necessary. I think that where we are right now, you cannot have a conversation about professional development in education that does not include embedded practices that address culturally responsive needs of students, not separate and apart, but embedded in everything that we do. So thank you for that. And then just another emerging theme is that this clearinghouse or network of resources, so that once something is proven and it works, we can share it out with someone else. And then another piece that I love, because it's also something that I've worked on in my district, is expanding Grow Your Own programs. When we're talking about recruiting a diverse teaching workforce and being able to address the needs within a community, I think the best place to start is within that community. I know at my school, a lot of my students have to see it to be it. And when they see people who live in their community, who are from their community, who have been successful and are doing well, I think that they're more in tune. So to tap into that group of people instead of looking out in other places for resources is so valuable and important.
I was really pleased to see you build on an existing model. I think some of the times we think we have to come up with something new, but it was nice to hear you say that this is something that's going on in our state already and that you could build off that. I love that you have 3 key ideas so that somebody could walk away and describe your presentation. So often as policymakers, we are asked to describe something that we saw for 60 minutes in one sentence. So helping people sort of frame it in their mind, I thought that you really did a good job of that. This third key idea, agency and capacity. I'd encourage you to think about whether that's communicating exactly what you're trying to say, because I think what you're trying to say is you want teachers to take their own responsibility for this. I like the word responsibility in here somewhere, but that's just my feedback. And then just an open question about what states and locals should be doing. Should we be running our own preparation programs or training programs, or should we be partnering with universities? I think it's probably both, but how do we talk about that is something I'm interested in learning more.
A couple of things. I think, again, your presentation was outstanding. Using the regional centers, I think, is a great resource. And, again, it builds on those state resources that are already in place. The term unconference, I think that could be used quite a bit. I think that helps to visualize kind of the change that we're talking about. I thought it was novel to use a digital resource repository. I think that's a really great use of technology then as well. I think I would expand a little more on your concept of hybrid leadership positions. I think that's a term that needs more expansion so people understand, and particularly, people think about the role of a superintendent or they think about a principal. So I think really expanding on that would be valuable. And then again, maybe linking to student outcomes and needs would be valuable as well. But great job.
Wait, just one thing. I'll just admit, this had nothing to do with content. I thought the content was fabulous. Everybody touched on that. I would just give three suggestions on the presentation. First, I feel like if maybe a couple sentences in the beginning to sort of to give larger context. I felt like we got into it really quickly. I know you don't have much time. Secondly, you gave an example of peer-to-peer was the best learning experience I've heard. If you could even bring it to life, what does that look like in the classroom? I don't really know what that means. And then thirdly, when you talk about the Grow Your Own or anything else you talk about, if you can point to any evidence that there's research that shows that these things work, I don't know if there is, but that would be great if you could.
What fabulous feedback. Okay. Everybody ready for their rating? Can you all see your ratings? Your official rating? Okay. Thank you. Okay, now let's welcome Are we ready for our next team? Here we go. The Arkansas National Board Teachers Network. Welcome.
Our team of National Board Certified Teachers represents Arkansas's affiliate for National Board. We are the agents for change.
We are a small group of National Board Certified Teachers who are determined to change the face of education in our state. We are going to begin by explaining why our plan will eliminate the achievement gap, what this plan looks like, and how we are already implementing the process. Our passion and vision is to elevate the teaching profession to once was what considered one of the most respected and admired jobs in our society. A decade of research has confirmed that students taught by National Board Certified Teachers make gains in upwards of 8 weeks of students taught by other teachers, especially our underserved populations. Our vision has 2 parts. First, we want to rapidly expand the number of MBCTs in Arkansas. We want an MBCT in every classroom and every zip code. Secondly, our plan will leverage the use of MBCTs to develop, design, and administer exceptional PD for our teachers. Our plan includes the direct mentoring of new teachers, increasing student achievement, and supporting the process to grow more MBCTs in our state.
Increasing the number of MBCTs in Arkansas requires options for support and funding and mentoring of those teachers based on the specific needs of teachers in schools and districts, especially districts with underserved students. National Board Certified Teachers are currently leading the professional learning in Arkansas in some areas. Examples are in my district, Fort Smith Public Schools in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and Rogers Public Schools in Rogers, Arkansas. MBCTs are working directly with novice teachers, serving as facilitators of reading, math, and content specialists, and are building and district administrators.
Equitable education is important for every student. Recent research found that board-certified teachers are more effective at advancing student learning than other teachers with similar experiences. You might not know, but at Chicago Mitchell Elementary School, where 70% of the students are from low-income families, they went from having only 8% of students performing at the top level to 24%, and reduced those in the lowest tier from 12% to only 0.3% during a period when the faculty went from having no board certified teachers to having 70% of their faculty board certified. Sources estimate 50% of the teachers leave the field in the first 5 years of teaching. Research supports providing retention stipends to build supply as an effective model for retaining MBCTs in the classroom, with 94% of MBCTs currently teaching or serving in specialized teaching positions, and 84% of MBCTs have remained in the same school district they were in the time that they were certified. We know 81% of Americans want their child to be taught by a National Board Certified teacher.
A challenge that National Board Certified teachers have is, what do I do next? More personally, how can I lead from my classroom? I teach in the BB School District in BB, Arkansas, where about 8% of the teachers are National Board Certified. My district has agreed to invest its professional development funds to grow its own National Board Certified teachers. This spring, I met with 4 teachers, kindergarten and first, to begin taking them through the National Board journey. Once they've submitted in the spring, then I will begin to take another group through to start their journey. This model can be replicated across our state from district to district in every district and utilize our nearly 3,000 MBCTs in Arkansas to make sure that every student in every zip code in every classroom is exponentially impacted by accomplished teaching. So what are our next steps? We already have plans to carry this message to policymakers. In August, we're participating in a National Board Mississippi Delta Summit to discuss possible solutions to challenges in that area. This week, we met with the governor's education liaison and have secured a commitment to a meeting with the governor. And we'll continue our frequent contacts with legislators and Department of Ed members, shifting our focus from advocacy for the program to growing National Board leaders.
Thank you. Stephanie, are you ready for some comments?
Sure. That was great. That was great. Except you talked a little bit fast. I just want, as somebody who talks super fast, some of it was really fast for me. Again, I love this. You started out with the achievement gap. That was fantastic. Got my attention right out of the gate. And that you talked about elevating the teaching profession. I think there's some of that underlies what everybody's been talking about, but you just called it out, and I like that. The one thing I think I heard there was a lot about the research, and to be honest, I think a lot of people know about that. I think you could maybe cut it a little bit. And I would like to have heard way more about the NCTB teachers leading professional learning. I think I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that, what that looks like, how you could scale it, and how much it would cost. But it was great.
When you first started, you said you have a plan that's going to close the achievement gap. And I was like, wow, this is huge, big. And this is in no way a criticism, but I kind of felt like I was not included in the conversation because I am not a National Board Certified teacher. And in my state, where as a beginning teacher, you have to, I think we're up to 4 certification exams. We have one of the most rigorous, crazy certification processes ever. As a new teacher, I would be somewhat overwhelmed by yet another certification process. So to kind of just weave that in and make it unified across state lines, because I think one of the biggest challenges we're having in Connecticut is our issue of reciprocity, where a teacher in Connecticut can't teach in Massachusetts because the requirements are so strikingly different. To now add another layer to that requirement, I think would be daunting to beginning educators and even some of our veteran educators who have already become experts in their field, and now to add on another layer. So just to sell that in a way where it's beneficial to everyone, like membership in this group is something that will have a ripple effect and affect everything that we touch.
I think you started with what caught my eye was elevating the profession, which is absolutely needed, and I think it's what we're talking about here, and it's a big moment for the country in terms of how we're going to talk about teachers going forward, and so I appreciate that. I wrote down a couple questions I just want you to think about. So if National Board Certification is the way that the state of Arkansas is going to go, can we work with state policymakers to say this is really just not optional, like we're going in this direction as a group? So rather than creating a group of teachers that is this group and then another group of teachers that is something else, like let's get the state and let's go. And I love that you're talking to the governor and legislature. Perfect. So that's more of a question, like could you do that? And then if I'm a non-policymaker and I don't know what the National Board is, make sure in your presentation you don't jump past what is involved in National Board Certification. Because some of these states have really low certification levels. Like when I hear certification, I don't automatically assume everything that comes along with National Board, which I already know, but maybe our other folks wouldn't know. So thanks.
I concur with many of the comments that my colleagues have already made. Make sure you include the commissioner and state board in your stakeholder list that's there. You mentioned that you had kind of visited with them, but it wasn't on your list. And I think they can really be champions for you in this process by being a part of the process. I love that you're focusing on nationally board certified teachers, because I think it's time in our country to have a real serious discussion about how do we elevate and understand what that role is with states. And as Chris said, there's such a difference in how certification occurs state to state, and it's Joanna mentioned that as well. I think it's important that we do maybe look at that and see how we elevate that process. So again, nice job.
Thank you. So what's our rating for the Arkansas team? Our ranking? Our rating, correct. They have to get to their seats to be able to see it. Can you all see your ratings from the judges? Congratulations again. Okay, next up, Agency 007, Professional Learning Bonds from Michigan.
Agent ISD, this is Bond, Pierce Bond. Is the line secure? Okay, I'll proceed with caution. We have problems in the state of Michigan. The legislature charged our state to be a top 10 state leader in education within the next 10 years. This is perplexing to a former teacher of the year who would rather take a deduct instead of sitting through PD sessions, because current PD sessions consist of drive-by, consultant-led experiences. We don't know how to implement the adopted standards of professional learning or how to become national board certified teachers. We're not empowered to learn and share with other teachers. For example, I excel at hosting Socratic seminars, but could really use some help with restorative practice. We don't have enough time to collaborate and improve our best practices unless it's during planning. Our students are suffering. We need an experienced agent to guide us. This is an urgent matter.
This is Agent ISD. I realize Agent Pierce is in a bind. She wants to improve her practice using a reflective, standards-based process similar to what she uses with her students. I need to connect her and her districts with some intermediate school districts, code word ISDs, across the state. I'm glad Michigan has these regional networks already in place. Currently, we're not capitalizing on ISDs the way we could. ISDs can provide teacher leaders with the opportunity to share best practices and complete all classroom missions. Each ISD can house collaborative learning networks for teachers and administrators. I know there's a teacher coach experienced with restorative justice in the Cultural and Diversity Network in Washtenaw County who can help Agent Pierce. Agent Pierce also needs to join the Collaborative Inquiry Network in Oakland County. She's already increasing student achievement using Socratic seminars, and other teachers across the state would surely benefit from her expertise. Through the ISDs, we can increase equity across the state for students and teachers.
This is Agent Connery with an update. Through redesigning the current professional development structure already in place at the regional hubs, educators will access standards-based professional learning. Both administrators and teachers will engage in peer-led professional learning to problem solve and develop the knowledge, skills, and dispositions necessary to prepare students for college and career. Research from the field indicates educators will have agency to set goals, share best practices, implement, reflect, and adjust to drive student learning. Districts will report an increase in highly effective teachers and be able to leverage the expertise within their region to design career pathways, such as peer coaching, mentoring, and facilitating professional learning. Districts across Michigan will indicate higher recruitment and retention as educators meet the needs of their students using ISDs as regional and statewide collaborative learning networks. Michigan educators will engage in deeper learning to make Michigan a top 10 in 10.
So let's debrief the situation. We have a few players to engage. The Michigan Department of Ed can use Title II funds to support districts to develop collaborative, not competitive, teacher-led networks through ISDs. They can also collect and share data among ISDs to ensure that professional learning is working through student achievement results. Another player to engage is Michigan school districts. They can use Title II funds to support teacher leaders in partnership with ISDs. They can use evidence-based standards for professional learning. They can also use continuous cycle of improvement to share best practices with teachers in other districts through ISDs. Our agents encourage you to be stirred, not shaken, to action. Mission complete. Good night.
Chris Minnick, would you like to respond to the agent?
I'm a little nervous, actually. Yes. Nice job. I just want to ask you a question. So you talked about competitive and collaborative. Could you, if you had more time, what would you have said about that? Why do you care about collaborative and not competitive? Yeah, you want to answer?
We would like the districts to work together to meet the needs of children in our state.
Yeah, okay. I'm just struck by, so most state policymakers understand that they're working in competitive environments, and that word is, we just went through race to the top, competition. This is not a competition here. So I'm just trying to figure out how we talk to folks, and I get it, in education we want every boat to rise. There's some choices that'll have to be made about how we use Title II dollars, so helping states understand what does it truly mean to be collaborative as you use those Title II dollars, I think is something you'll get asked. So I just want to thank you guys for stating the problem clearly up front. That was as clear as I've heard it today about that if we don't do this, we won't move the needle for kids across the state of Michigan. So thank you for that. And you set out the benefits of this very clearly. If you had more time, I would want you to tell me more directly how you would do this. And I think that's probably what you struggled with as you put your presentation together. But thank you for what you're doing in Michigan. It was a good presentation.
I think the way you began was powerful, just that students are suffering, and it was a clear call to action. And I think I love the way you included that teachers are empowered to learn, because it reminds us that as teachers we are also learners, and we're constantly learning, and we're looking for new and improved information. And then the idea of redesigning your current system, because I think, as I said before, oftentimes people are unwilling to start fresh or from scratch, or to let go of the ideas that they developed many years ago. It's like a personal attack when you say, this isn't working. But when you frame the conversation in such a way as, we'll keep the pieces that do work and change the pieces that don't. And then I think the part that was refreshing for me is that this includes student voice as well. I don't remember hearing that, but any reflective process has to include, how we've met the needs of students in their voice.
So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm a little bit conflicted about the beginning of it. It seemed a little bit negative. There was a lot of I'm wondering if maybe the beginning was, I feel like I was at the Republican convention. No, I'm joking. Totally joking. No, totally joking. I'm totally joking. No, in the I thought it was fantastic, but I am sitting in my mind like, is it better to start out with here's all the things that are wrong? I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other, but I do think it's something to think about. I would run it by other people and I'd be curious what people think about starting with the negatives. I'm just tossing it out there.
Well, I thought your presentation was very creative, 007. I think the use of the regional resources ISD to leverage the resources and teacher expertise is really, again, building on a structure that's there, but maybe that structure not currently accommodating the needs of teachers as it relates to looking at professional development in a very different perspective. I thought that the foundation for developing collaborative teacher-led networks is very important. I kind of concur with Stephanie to a certain extent around really maybe bringing that linkage to student outcomes and needs at the end in a little different way might have strengthened the presentation a little bit. But thank you, very creative.
Great job. Thank you. Okay, we'll see where our judges stand on the rating of the bond team. We're keeping her too busy. And your final rating? There you go. Oh, and they were all together. Thank you again. Next up is the Illinois State Teachers of the Year, Teachers Making a Difference by Leading. Let's welcome them.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting us here today to share the vision of teacher leaders across Illinois as representatives of the Illinois Teacher of the Year and finalists. Through ESSA, we have a unique opportunity as stakeholders to collaborate with chief officers, policymakers, and education organizations on a system that ensures high-quality education is equitable in diverse classrooms. Because we know that teacher leaders play a vital role in meaningful professional learning experiences, our recommendation for Illinois and its districts is to incorporate those teacher leaders in the development of a new framework that supports individualized pathways for teacher leadership with contextualized, just-in-time professional development. We are advocating for the creation of two intersecting frameworks. Our teacher leadership framework promotes the organic growth of teacher leaders. Numerous researchers show that teachers stay and improve schools when they have leadership and collaboration opportunities. In the state of Illinois, teacher leaders are already growing through independent networks. Because of ESSA, the state now has the opportunity to unite and leverage the incredible strength of teacher leaders. Under our teacher leadership framework, we recommend the state includes features that align with the teacher leader model standards and offers pathways for teachers to pursue individualized as needed leadership training. This training engages teachers in new roles to meet the contextual needs of the schools, such as hybrid roles that allow teachers to stay in the classroom while assuming leadership responsibilities. Our framework for the implementation of professional development then utilizes those teacher leaders to provide high-quality professional development. If we truly want to meet the specific needs of unique students in classrooms from Chicago to Cairo, not Cairo, Illinois, then we must tap into the potential of these teacher leaders. A shared framework of professional development between the state and local districts ensures that long-term, just-in-time, and differentiated professional development occurs in every school so that every child can experience high-quality learning. Thankfully, our recommendations for the state educational agencies is not to reinvent the wheel. The Illinois Teacher Leader Network, a collaboration of 23 educational organizations, has done amazing work towards raising up and unifying teacher leaders throughout our state. We want the state to build on that foundation by enabling those teacher leaders to play a role in the implementation of professional development. We can also ask for the creation of a state-level teacher advisory council to assist with the development and implementation of the frameworks. And to represent the teachers of our great state, we ask that an Illinois Teacher of the Year is appointed to sit in on the Illinois State Board of Education. The local educational agencies will be supported and empowered by these strong frameworks. Through a partnership with the state agencies, local agencies can conduct ongoing evaluations for a cycle of continuous improvement. The local teacher leaders, as supported through the leadership framework, can embed themselves in their jobs and still take on leadership roles in their buildings through a lattice-type structure that promotes growth in any direction a teacher sees fit. Through these two frameworks, the effectiveness of long-term professional development can accurately be measured to ensure that excellent and context-specific teaching practices are meeting the needs of every child. True equity in education asks that our teachers and their students work alongside education partners and policymakers. Together, we can achieve professionalism in education through increased teacher capacity while meeting our children where they are. Thank you.
Rachel, are you ready to give some feedback?
I am. Again, I'm going to take a couple of the comments that were from your application as well. I think you really looked at designing a system, and I think that's important that you're looking at it from a very systematic viewpoint of how do we look at this statewide, and I think that has a lot of value and merit in the process. I think that creating that intersection between teacher leadership and high-quality professional development is the key to making it a successful statewide venture. I think that building also that foundation on the Illinois Teacher Leader Network, again, builds on pieces that are already in place, so you're not starting from scratch, so to speak. You're really bringing those pieces together. I loved your idea of adding the Teacher of the Year to the state board. I think that's a great idea. And then, again, maybe building back pieces that really define student outcomes, student success, and defining equity a little bit. We talk a lot about excellence and we talk a lot about equity, but we really don't define it for stakeholders, for community members, for state board members. What do you really mean when you talk about excellence and equity? So thank you.
I thought it was a great presentation. Thank you for building on what's already going on in Illinois. Love what your state teachers of the year do. I get to meet with you guys a lot, so good work in Illinois. I would encourage you to tell me the challenge you're trying to solve up front. It took me about a couple minutes to understand the challenge you were going for, so I think you could have done that up front a little bit better. And I just have a question that I want you guys to think about. How is the Teacher of the Year selected in Illinois, and does it feel to other teachers that would be a good representative of teacher voice on the state board? We have states that are in all different places on this. So in some places, like the teachers union selects the Teacher of the Year. In other places, it's a bigger process. So it may work in Illinois because of the way you select your Teacher of the Year. And so for other states in the room, think about how you might get teacher voice into the process. And you may or may not be able to use the state Teacher of the Year. But thank you for that.
I think I was kind of thinking along those same lines, because as the Teacher of the Year, I make it a goal on purpose not to be separated from my peers, but to be inclusive of the group. And I just think that I love this idea of this Teacher Advisory Council, but maybe you should think about leaving a seat open for a beginning or a developing teacher, because I think what a way to change the trajectory of someone's career. I think that oftentimes we assume that you have to attain a certain level in your career before you're invited into these conversations. But if we begin to understand why teachers feel discouraged or want to leave the profession very early on, and I guess I'm saying this because I wouldn't want the responsibility. I know I'm not the best teacher in Connecticut. So just to have that dialogue of teachers at various levels in their career just coming together in a very solution-driven way, I think is a great idea. But leave a seat open for a teacher who may be developing.
Why do I always have to go after her? It's really hard to follow the teacher. I would just say one really quick thing. The connection between teacher leadership and high-quality PD, I think, is really interesting and important, and I would just expand that a little bit more on the presentation.
Okay, so Illinois State Teachers of the Year, thank you. All of this advice is so tremendous, and so much of the comments of the judges is applicable to everybody in the room. I'm sure you all are taking copious notes as you think about what you're going to do next, and we have these amazing experts up here, and they are being so incredibly thoughtful to each one of the presentations. And so, judges, I know you can give yourselves a score at the end too, but time to rate. Illinois State teachers, you got your scores. And we have two more. So Murray Hill Academy from New York City, welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon. We are Murray Hill Academy, and here to present to you are 3 teachers and 1 assistant principal from a transfer high school in Manhattan. We believe we have a unique proposal here because what we're going to propose is something that is already being practiced in our school. So starting with our vision, for far too long, We believe that professional learning has been top down. It seems that we all agree on this. Not only does this decline to utilize the myriad of skills, ideas, and agency that teachers are capable of, it leads to long-term systemic problems such as teacher shortages. It is time for a re-professionalization of teaching, one that focuses on trust and collaboration and teacher-owned professional learning that we are already living at Murray Hill Academy. These types of changes shift our perception of teachers from direct instructors to action researchers. Students grow best when teachers are trusted and supported by leadership focused on implementing systems based off of professional learning as prescribed in ESSA. Instead of top-down, one-size-fits-all planning policies for professional learning, individual teacher needs can be identified through teacher-owned inquiry cycles that will be detailed by my colleague, Ms. Bowe.
All right. To expand on what Mr. Chu was stating on how teachers should be action researchers leading their own data-driven inquiry, our school has implemented inquiry tasks to enhance student learning. We have 3 inquiry cycles throughout the school year, in which each cycle is about 3 months long. After reviewing baseline data with my co-teacher, we decided to focus on Common Core Standard using scientific vocabulary to manage complexity of topic. We tested strategies based on student mastery of the assessment. At the end of the cycle, we analyzed and reflected to determine if our strategies had any impact on student learning, and we still found most students were lacking evidence in their scientific analysis, which led us to change our focus standard. As a result, 77% of our students were able to meet and even exceed the standard, which was a 36% increase from our baseline data. In fact, Simon, a student with special needs, was able to go from approaching to exceeding the standard. For me as a teacher, this has pushed me to deeply reflect on the needs of my students to ensure that every student succeeds.
Ms. Bowe just described her individual experience as an action researcher. We supported each other throughout the process by using intervisitation and non-evaluative feedback. Every teacher saw student growth. We envisioned teacher leadership emerging into multi-tiered professional learning opportunities. At Murray Hill Academy, every teacher presented their findings and successes with particular strategies. This gave birth to a protocol database and videos outlining these strategies that any teacher could use based on data. We're proposing this model be expanded on a district, state, and national level, where teacher leaders would examine the strengths and weaknesses within and across districts and states to create build-by-borrowing approaches presented at conferences and virtual spaces.
So, now for the big question, how to make it happen. In order to make it happen, which we did, schools have to use ESSA funding to compensate teachers for their time. I mean, that's after school, professional development time, working at districts and state conferences, as well as participating in virtual spaces. In order to make this happen, administrators have to be trained with ESSA funding to think outside the box, to create the time and space for this to happen. And then lastly, teachers have to have time to make this happen. At Murray Hill Academy, we meet every day for one period, plus 2 to 3 hours a week for a total of 8 weeks during a school week to professionally collaborate. In addition, 10 out of 25 of our teachers have reduced teaching schedules. As you can see,
we're going to get lots more questions from the judges.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll let them see if they want to use some of the time to finish up with the last part. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, okay, great. And so in order for other schools and states to achieve this, ESSA funding is going to have to be used to allow for smaller class sizes and to put more educators into our schools. Like, when teachers are treated like professionals, excellence happens, like we've had happen at Murray Hill Academy.
Set our clock at 3.5, if you would, so we stay on time. I like that you led with teachers leading their growth areas and using their data to figure out what they're going to do next. I think that's empowering for teachers in a way that we don't usually see in typical professional development models where you don't have any choice about what's happening to you. So thank you for that. I would like you to tell me what didn't work as well, because I know that there was probably things that didn't work and that you've adjusted as you've gone along. So if you were giving a longer presentation about this, engage me in why things didn't work, because I like the model, but I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure not every teacher in your school loves this. So figuring out what are the characteristics of those teachers who really do thrive in this environment, and so we're teaching those characteristics as well. And then I would love to know what are some of the common challenges that have come up for learning. So what are the things that 10%, 20% of your teachers are all saying they need help with? Classroom management, I don't know what it is, but there may be some commonalities that would be helpful to share out. So thank you.
Two things stood out for me. First, that you presented it in a very research-based way, which made teaching sound like a profession. And the only people that are capable of doing this are teachers. So it felt good. And then the second thing was that you brought your principal, and that really shows buy-in. I think about with my students, we build houses with Habitat for Humanity all the time, and I tell them to go on a roof, and they look at me like, you do it. So just to see that there's value in your school, everyone's on board, you have the same vision, and you're moving in the same direction, because sometimes those roles seem like they're separated. So for you guys to come out of the gate saying we're in this together and we've worked on this together and everyone's involved would make me as a teacher be more confident in this plan.
A few quick things. I love that you started out by introducing who was there. I was like, okay, I know I'm talking. The principal is here, so I love that. You don't need to answer this, but on the action research, I wasn't clear if you guys developed this or this is a well-known thing that you guys are bringing to your school. So maybe just a little bit about that. And then finally, I felt there might have been a tension between when you said, how do we pay for this or something like that? Well, we did it. You did it without any ESSA money, but now you're asking for ESSA money. So just that there's a tension there that you're basically saying, well, you don't need extra money. You did it. So it's sort of explaining that.
I'll just add one quick comment. I think a lot of strengths that you provided, but I liked your term about the reprofessionalization of teaching. But I think when you talked about time, you really need to think about how you tie the reprofessionalization with redistribution of time as a part of that process. So expanding on that would be important.
Great presentation, great advice. And I think we may have a few different ratings this time. So you might want to check out your ratings from the judges, Murray Hill. Okay, and last but definitely not least, so we are at Team 12, and we will hear from the Milwaukee Restorative Practices team. Welcome, Milwaukee.
We are about to blow up what you think professional development can be and what you think Title II funds should be used for.
Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the children in my first grade classroom. I'll call him Raul. Raul came experiencing a lot of trauma. He was angry, yelled at classmates, struggled to focus. He was bouncy, very bouncy. But most of all, Raul didn't believe he could learn. However, within the culture of our classroom, where 6-year-olds reflect, support each other, Raul came to recognize how he was feeling, to be able to plan for what he needed to do to fix things. It got to be where I could see Raul bouncing, struggling to pay attention to what was going on or focus on what he was doing, and say, Raul, what's going on? And he could say, I need a fidget toy, or brain break time, we need to move. Something that he could do to truly move himself along. He was empowered. Imagine that empowerment in every classroom across the country.
Cheryl's story is common in a restorative classroom. Our big idea is to utilize professional development time for restorative practices. We define restorative practices as an emerging social science that includes a variety of informal to formal ways of using these practices to build community and repair harm. And restorative practices values relationships at its core. When we think about Raul and how restorative practices was used in that classroom, with a 6-year-old child, he was held accountable, he's supported, he's valued, and he's empowered. When we talk about restorative practices, we talk about doing things with people, not to people. It's a wholly transformative practice that has the power to create systemic change where everyone is held accountable, supported, valued, and empowered.
This professional learning is intentionally focused on the needs of each individual school, the staff, the students, and the families, where they identify their own needs, exercising their voice, agency, and self-determination. This work is bottom-up, not top-down. It's local and it's responsive, most importantly, to the real-time needs of our students. This transformative approach to professional learning is absolutely predicated on autonomy and collaborative and distributed leadership, where every partner is involved and recognized as equal in the space, both in power and in responsibility. And this autonomy and distributed leadership does not exist in the adult realm alone. It is observed daily in classrooms, between adults and students, and at the student-to-student interaction level. This work is honored, protected, and prioritized across all grade levels every school day throughout the school year.
In order for this transformation to occur, we recommend that states demonstrate how Title II funds can be used for restorative practices professional development, as well as hiring a restorative practice coordinator who would maintain a repository of best practices, identify fully functioning schools, and identify practitioners who excel and can provide support to districts and schools. At a local level, districts will provide PD to everyone who works with children and families, and a restorative practice framework will shape district policy and procedure. At the school level, professional development will be ongoing and embedded. In order to ensure continuous growth, a variety of assessments would be implemented.
As just one part of the West End's recent study concluded, graduation rates rose 60% in schools using restorative practices compared to only 7% in non-restorative schools. Today we told you about Raul. There are millions of Rauls. Imagine this professional development can not just transform a school, but a community.
Rachel, would you like to begin?
A great ending on transforming the community. As we talked about, actually transforming legislation with ESSA in what we do. I think you have a really comprehensive viewpoint of a strategy that's very difficult to define in 4 minutes. I think you did a really good job in defining a strategy that's much more comprehensive than what you were able to provide in this 4-minute period of time. I think embedding the families and caregivers and community in the process is critical. Your focus on student voice and the relationship between student voice and teacher voice is very empowering when you think about voice as a part of this process. Also, that focus on student-to-student level, I think that's another important consideration if we really are going to look at how we change the trajectory of student success in our cities and in our country. So thank you. Thanks.
I thought it was a great presentation. Thank you guys for doing this, and it's such an important topic for us that we're not always willing to talk about. So thank you for bringing it forward, and thanks for telling a student story. So I think through the lens of a kid. I told a story at lunch about a student I've worked with, and it had a little different ending than this one, but I do think that that's the way to tell this story. This is through the eyes of a kid who has to interact with these systems that aren't always fair to that student. So just two open questions for you. Tell me how the teachers are dealing with this shift, because this is, especially somebody who has been teaching for 20 years, this is really a change from the discipline structures and things like that that we've had in the past. So I imagine it's requiring a lot of learning. And so if you're going to give a longer presentation on this, that would be one question. And then, and given all the values and individual values, parental values that are a part of this, how are you dealing with parents who may not totally understand where you're going? So those were two questions that I just had for you, and we can talk at the celebration about that. Thank you.
I would say that, first of all, you had me at Raul. But I love the fact that nowhere in your presentation did you tie restorative practices to discipline. And I think that's what people think that means. And then the other piece is, what a way to bring families and communities back into schools. I think, we've spent so long creating systems that were not welcoming to parents who did not feel that they could advocate for their kids or had the knowledge to bring their voice in this way. But for you to create a plan that is almost dependent upon the voice of every single stakeholders, I think would be empowering, not just to teachers and students, but to families and communities, and really shift the way we look at education. Thank you.
Just quickly, I totally agree with that. I would just add on that the development of ESSA is supposed to be done with stakeholder engagement. So, I would play that up like that. That's the power of your presentation, I think. Two quick things. I didn't know if Raul was a composite character or a real kid. If he's real, I would just say he's real, because otherwise it seems like he might. Because you said, let's call him Raul. I don't know if he is real. I understand that there's problems around identification, but maybe there's a way to get around that, because I wasn't sure if he was real or fake. I'm assuming he was real. And then secondly, I wasn't sure if you were calling for this thing to happen in every school and money to be set aside for it, or we need somebody in case we want to do this, or this is a pilot, or just like more definitive about exactly what you want to happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that final rating for the final team. How great is that? Okay, we've come to the end of the official presentations. We launched this competition because we really wanted to hear from great teachers across this country about how we can improve professional learning so that it helps all teachers and then their students improve their practice and their results. And we knew if we invited teachers to give us those ideas, we wouldn't be disappointed. And agents, you even exceeded beyond the early expectations that we had for this. And judges, your advice was so spot on. You were specific to each person, but within in all of your comments, you made other recommendations that could apply across all of the presentations. And I have no doubt that these individuals, these teams within this room are going to take that advice to continue their agency. Now, they may be coming to you for some help in getting in front of the right people, or for some more feedback with how they take their ideas even further. And I know these people up here will be more than happy to continue that conversation with you. And coaches, were you not proud? Coaches in the room? So now we can all take a deep breath. We can move, we can celebrate a little, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow you'll get back to work. So we will see you in a few minutes in the room next door for the celebration. And those of you who joined us online, thank you, and we hope you'll be reaching out to all of these great teams to give them your support. We are adjourned.